Hello and welcome to today's webinar, 5 Requirements for Cloud Storage Services, brought to you by Zadara. We're going to get started here in just a few seconds. I see people are still coming in and we want to give them a moment to get settled. So we're going to get rolling here in about 30 seconds. Thank you very much. Hello again, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. 5 Requirements for Cloud Storage Services is the title of our webinar today, brought to you by Zadara. We are going to go through material that we find we encounter quite a bit here with our customers when we talk to them, and we know we're seeing quite a bit of this as well in the media. And so looking forward to sharing our thoughts and advice with you. I am joined today. I'm going to walk us through these slides. I'm joined today by Mark Levitt, our Senior Director of Product Marketing. He is our resident expert. Hello, Mark.
Good morning, Greg.
Thank you. I'm Greg Newman. There you see my picture as well.
Process of elimination.
Exactly. I think our audience can keep up, I suspect. So what we'll do, and here's our agenda, is we're going to tackle these 5 requirements in order. We're going to share with you a little bit about what these mean. We're going to talk a little bit about what it takes, and we're going to share with you a little bit of our insight here at Zadara and how we tackle these things. Mark, you brought up a good point. I had said, gee, this list looks like a terrific list, and you'd said something to the effect of, this will not be a surprise.
Yeah, there's nobody who's been in storage for more than a week that will look at this list and go, gee, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
This list has been constant for 20 years. With the possible question about, compliance is newer than that, but it's been coming on ever since Sarbanes-Oxley and HIPAA came into force.
Yeah, exactly. And so really the insights I think we bring today have to do more with the 8 years plus experience that we have in delivering storage as a service and operating in this cloud model. With that term out there now, cloud, let's talk for a moment about that, because I think it's important at the outset of any conversations to define your terms. And the term cloud is bandied about quite a bit, Mark. We know, of course, that cloud is an operating model. That's how we see it. And when we think about cloud, we're thinking more about the method in which we choose to deploy, deliver, and manage storage.
And I don't want to lose that point, because that's actually really important. As you say, cloud gets bandied about a bunch, and it is in fact the operating model that matters. We've had ways to colo, we've had ways to outsource. What is new, to the extent that cloud is new, is this flexible consumption model that cloud gives us.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that people are looking to this now and asking themselves, how do I become more flexible in my IT operations? Storage has been a laggard a little bit, right? People haven't necessarily wanted to deal with it. It's at the heart of your operation. Do I really want to mess with it? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, I suppose, is one way to look at it.
Yeah. I mean, storage people, storage professionals, speaking as one and speaking as somebody who has known a lot of storage professionals in a lot of industries, are by nature conservative, because the storage holds the data, and the data, as everybody agrees, are the crown jewels. That's what matters more than anything, is the data. So yeah, you need a good reason to change. You need to have a lot of confidence in what you change to.
It's true. So before we dive into the next slide, the last point on that is, the change is happening. We know it. Now the question becomes, how do we do this in a manner that's going to be deliberate? It's going to be careful and thoughtful, and we're not going to sacrifice.
And to go back to my point, what we're saying here is you have to know why you're changing, and what we have in this environment are absolutely compelling reasons to actually make those changes.
Yeah.
So as storage professionals, we now have to confront how to make this change.
Yeah, the business drivers are there, and they're in place.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the pain points. This was some research from 451, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Mark, walk us through this. There's some really interesting little tidbits here.
Well, again, this is the way I feel about this is, I think anybody looks at this result, and And what I love about this particular piece, just a plug for 451's Voice of the Enterprise, what I love about this is that they have large ends. So they go talk to a lot of professionals. They do year-over-year comparisons. And the shape of this, what's in this chart and the shape of it probably hasn't changed significantly for at least 10 years.
Yeah.
So again, nobody's really surprised here. But what is kind of surprising as a longtime storage professional to me is that data and capacity growth continues. We say that every year.
Yeah.
Every year, data growth. The data is growing. And what the data growth we talked about last year that we thought was big is like nothing compared to the data growth we have this year. And we say that every year. So, and that goes down to the same thing. It's not getting any easier for the people who are charged with storing and protecting and maintaining availability for that data, because scale breaks can break any model, and it forces new models.
Yeah, and one of the things I see in this chart, I think we talked about this, is how, and you just mentioned it, how broadly based the concerns are, and I think that speaks to the issue that we see with our customers, which is there's no one killer issue. You need to solve the whole thing. You can't have a partial solution when it comes to storage.
Yeah, and the solutions to each piece tend to overlap the other pieces too. It's really a question of being able to take a step back and look at the whole problem, because something is performance just performance, or is performance also a scaling challenge?
Right.
Right. All that is true. So you just gotta we put it in buckets, but we have to be able to understand those buckets are connected.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see a little bit of that as we go through our conversation today because of the way we've structured it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at these 5 key issues one at a time and talk about them. Scalability, availability, affordability, performance, and compliance. So without further ado, let's dive in, shall we?
Yeah, let's do that.
Scalability. We know that scalability is something we think of as always going up, because certainly data grows, the amount of data grows, but scalability is, it's a two-way street, right? And increasingly in the world that we live in, we need to be contemplating that.
Yeah, I mean, what all this boils down to is that, again, you can go to any analyst, you can go to any, blog post on talking about this topic, and the bottom line is that it is just increasingly difficult to predict what the capacity requirements and the nature of the requirements is going to be. This is part of the digital enterprise, and what we talk about in a positive context is the business agility. But business agility drives these demands back into the storage infrastructure, that is very challenging. So scalability is a very big topic all the time. I mean, we could do a whole webinar on scalability, no problem.
Yeah.
But to address that difficulty in predicting, is the first thing you have to have is the ability to flexibly consume the capacity. We talk about, it's got to be, and it's not just scaling up. I mean, we talk about data growth, that's true. And most people can scale up in one sense or another. But you also have to scale down, because the other thing that comes out of this whole business agility discussion are projects that spin up and then spin down. And you want to be able to repurpose the resources, in this case the dollars, that are associated with projects that are no longer current. So this is where the storage system really has to back up that business agility piece. And rapid provisioning, I mean, when you need more capacity, a lot of the times you don't need it in a couple of weeks or a couple of months, you need it now.
Right.
And so the ability to get it now, I mean, you might have some flexibility in your scale down, but your scale up a lot of time has like very little flexibility. And we deal with that all the time, where somebody, they didn't, a new requirement shows up. It's not that they didn't plan, it's just a new requirement shows up and it has to be online, tomorrow. And so you've got to get it provisioned today. And I think everybody who's managed storage has had that experience. Storage medium choice, how does that play into this? That's part of scaling performance and also scaling capacity. It's the ability to make sure that you can match your requirements to the right kind of storage. There's no one, as much as some purveyors say, particularly purveyors of all flash arrays, where that's all they sell, And apparently that is the only thing you need in your data center.
Right.
Most data center professionals will tell you, well, no, not really. I need things that are also have more balanced performance characteristics and maybe larger capacity and a different price point. And so that's all part of, what we're talking about, making your budget go further or having larger lakes of data. That's all part of a medium choice as well. And monitoring, I mean, a lot of people would say, well, what does monitoring got to do with scalability? But it's like, again, you have to step back and look at the whole thing. Maybe what you need to do, maybe they're one of your big challenges, and I say this with a lot of data behind it, is that organizations are continuously challenged to get trained, experienced resources available to manage their storage. And you need to scale that to scale your data. So what you need is somebody to scale that piece of it for you, to bring in that managed services aspect so that your ability to create or hire storage experts is not the limiting factor in your ability to scale your data.
It's a good point. It's often overlooked, isn't it? The management burden.
It is all the time. Yet, when you look at CIO surveys, that is a huge pain point all the time.
Yeah. Now, I noticed that on this list, Mark, you included non-disruptive online volume migration.
Yeah.
And again, but it's a flexibility thing too, right?
It's a flexibility thing, and it's also a central piece. It can come up in a lot of places, but it's a central piece, especially in a scale down. It also can be a central piece when you have, and this is somewhere in that interconnected mix of scalability and performance and affordability, where if you start out, and we'll talk about this more in some other aspects, but if you start out with a project that's running on all flash, and because that was the business requirement, or somebody just didn't want to even worry about whether there was enough performance there, so you do all flash, you run it for a while, and you go, don't really need that. We could save some money here. It worked just fine in a balanced performance, and so huge majority of our customers that have been with us for a long time are running on balanced performance systems because the key thing is performance that's fit for purpose, right? So, but it's okay. Somebody goes in, they create this all flash virtual array to satisfy a business requirement, and you run it. Say, hey, I don't need all this capacity. Fine, we can migrate it back to a balanced performance or to a slow array if there's no I/O going to it to speak of. Non-disruptively online, so your data is still available, and you have a way to save money in your budget.
You mentioned that that's how we solve for things. I put this slide in here as a diagram explaining a little bit of our architecture and what it means to live in a world where you can achieve the kind of scalability that we're able to achieve. And I know you touched on some of these issues. This diagram, I hope, will help make it a little more clear for some of our viewers. Exactly how an architecture like this allows for that. Yeah,
it's a funny thing because I've spoken to audiences composed primarily of server systems managers and particularly virtualization environment managers, and for them this is their briar patch. They look at this and they go, yeah, right. Yeah. This is a virtualization scheme. I get it. You've got CPUs and you're sharing them out, and you've got storage resources, and you carve them up in what we call virtual arrays, virtual private storage arrays, and on requirement out of a pool of available resources. And that's exactly right. Where it is unique, if not revolutionary, is when you apply that to storage. And so this is how we develop what we call that we deliver the single tenant experience with multi-tenant efficiency. Again, leveraging virtualization technologies, and but also dedicating resources. And this is the important thing. This is why we talk about a virtual private storage array, is because every one of those virtual private storage arrays that are created on demand, again, the scale now kind of thing, get dedicated resources. And this is dedicated CPUs, dedicated RAM, dedicated cache, dedicated storage devices, disk drives and SSDs. So they're not shared with anybody else, which addresses both a predictable performance issue and also gives you protection against data leakage. So there's a security aspect. And we roll all that up and provide it in a way that's easy to consume.
Every prospect and customer or trade show attendee that I speak to in my role in marketing does a double take when they hear that. Are you telling me we get dedicated resources?
Yeah.
And I say yes.
Yeah.
There's a bit of disbelief.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, really, this is what we do, and we've been doing it for 11 years. And this is how we get that true multi-tenant effect also. I mean, true multi-tenancy with that single tenant experience, because it is a major concern for people that are again conservative because they're holding the crown jewels. You want to put them in a place where you understand that the resources are still going to be yours.
Which speaks to I think one of the big limitations or perceived limitations in people's minds about moving to a cloud-based model.
Yeah.
How will my performance suffer? How will my ability to achieve the kind of storage architecture I want?
Right, and you're right, and that's what we call the noisy neighbor problem.
Yeah.
Right, it's like, how well in a heavily shared environment, how does somebody else's consumption resources affect my experience and my ability to provide predictable performance to my internal customers? And that's how we solve this problem. And if you don't architect your multi-tenancy in from the beginning, you are not going to be able to paste it onto there are vendors, well-known vendors,
right,
who try, but when you really have to do it, you have to do it from the base up from architecture.
So that leads to this is obviously a fundamental issue. That's why we're tackling it first. That leads to another key issue. We know this comes up, and it's related, of course, and that's to do with availability. There are expectations amongst enterprise storage admins that there are things that you should be able to do. And if those capabilities are not available, then it's really no longer an enterprise storage scheme.
Right, and this is another topic where we want to deal with those fundamental things, right? Because when a storage administrator, when somebody responsible for managing enterprise storage or directing or architecting enterprise storage, there are things you got to talk about here, like RPO, so recovery point objectives and recovery time objectives, and the technological tools that you have available to achieve those requirements. And by the way, this feeds right back into something we'll get to at the end, which is compliance and governance.
Yeah.
And especially governance, because you have situations where the companies and boards of directors will establish requirements for this. So you've got to have the tools, and the most important thing is to have a full set, multi-dimensional capabilities, like it says on the slide, to address availability. And it's also a fairly complex topic. So we want to deal with the basics. Can we do remote replication? Absolutely, we do have replication. That's the core. You got to be able to do that. Snapshots and clones, and that both supports your remote replication. It also supports application consistent backups that can establish another recovery path that you really want a path to get those backups off site and be able to recover from them quickly, efficiently, and cost effectively. Multi-zone high availability. Sometimes it's not your failure, right? Sometimes an availability zone comes down. Sometimes a whole region goes down. Sometimes, very, very rarely, but it's happened, a whole cloud goes down, right? So that's why you have to have a complete set to ensure that you are available and that your business is viable, even in difficult circumstances. So just talking about, okay, what are the basic tools? I mentioned remote mirroring across the globe. This is a bar. If your storage provider doesn't do this, then you don't have availability.
Right, period.
Period, end of story. I don't care what anybody says. If you can't replicate it out of a geographic region and know where it is, you don't have it. Snapshots. Again, this is about creating application consistent backups that you can restore from and reestablish your business and meet your recovery time objectives. Backup to object store is a specific offering that we have that has a cool aspect, if it's a fit for your business, where we, within our virtual private storage array, we'll actually back up to local or remote object storage. That can be in the cloud providers. It can also be ours. And uniquely, what we can do with that is another virtual private storage array can access those backups and mount them as and present them immediately. So the path to recovery is it's not a full-fledged remote mirroring capability, which is the way to really optimize your RTOs. But at a much lower cost point, you can recover your operations very quickly, albeit at a lower performance level, as you work towards restoring full capability. So that's a cool tool. And multi-zone availability is where it's just simply, people talk about stretch arrays and stretch clusters. That's what we're doing, is we're spreading a single virtual private storage array across multiple zones, so that even one availability zone fails, you still have access to the array, and the array has its capabilities.
Nice. Well, and you mentioned something in that last slide about different levels of performance and different levels of cost. Having those choices, of course, can really matter when you're talking about designing a storage system that fits your needs. Affordability comes up all the time. We talk to our clients about it in just about every engagement. It's a primary topic, and so I feel like in many respects, this conversation drives right back to the notion of choices.
It does. It does. The choices, again, about what kind of storage medium you put your data on, to meet your business-defined performance requirements. Does it need to be an all-flash? Great, put it in all-flash. If it doesn't need to be all-flash, maybe it just goes into our largest category, which is the balanced performance. Or maybe it's just something that you need to have occasional access to. Fine, good. You need answers for that too. And that's a whole tiering perspective. The media choice, the ability to know that if you change your choice, again, we talked about this earlier, but if you change that choice, you can migrate that data. We'll help you. That's the managed service piece of it. In an online way, so the data is still available, and you're moving it to whatever you need. And as soon as the migration's done, you're set. I would add one thing actually to this list. When I was looking at the slide earlier, I was saying, hey, when we talk about affordability, and also when we talk about, to go back one slide, availability, one key thing that doesn't get enough play, starting to get more mention now, is multi-cloud capability.
Mm-hmm.
So if your storage can be presented to multiple clouds at the same time, then you're protected against full cloud outages. And you also have, in the affordability range, it changes what I call the balance of power in your discussions with your cloud vendors.
Sure.
And it allows you to then, with very little gravity, move your applications between cloud vendors without having to move data, right? So you can make those changes much more quickly and really accelerate your agility.
So not being locked in, retaining control.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now,
exactly. The data is yours. You don't have to get it back from anybody.
This is a good time to interject, I think, a notion that we talk about a lot here, but we don't necessarily speak about in enough detail, I think, with some of our customers. And what I mean is the purpose behind the founders starting this company. Why did they do this? And you can tell from our approach that their approach was really one of, how do I give people a toolkit and the tools needed to design the best storage system for their needs, whatever those needs may be, and even if those needs might change. And therefore, our approach is more of an operating model. We're not a product pusher, right? We're not here pushing particular. Like you said earlier, we don't sell flash necessarily. And I think that approach really changes.
Well, the key is we don't sell anything. This is the greatest storage you cannot buy.
Well said. That's right. Well, you can't buy anything from us, in fact. You can only buy our services. And yet that approach really makes a big difference, doesn't it, in terms of how we go to market and what it is we offer our customers.
It does. There's so much in that operating model. Again, it's something else we could really spend quite a bit of time on. But just to take one example, there's a lot of discussion among legacy vendors about who has the best program for upgrading,
right,
for keeping your hardware fresh. I won't use anybody's trademark terms here.
Yeah.
But to upgrade your existing infrastructure to newest infrastructure so that it doesn't become obsolete. It's a very hot topic, and it should be. It's a big problem. It's something else that's difficult to manage. People get absolutely blown away when we talk about what that means in our context, which is, we haven't talked much about it, but you can have Zadara storage in cloud adjacent, or you can have it on premises. It's the same model. It's the operating model that we talked about. And if it's on premises, for instance, and you want it upgraded, all you have to do is ask.
Yep.
There's no cost associated. There is no program you have to be involved in. If we release new hardware, and new higher capacity flash drives or whatever, bigger Optane caches, all you have to do is ask, and it will get upgraded. And that is absolutely unique. And it's one of those things that, it's like the other guys are arguing about, it's like some dinosaurs arguing about who lays the best eggs while a giant meteor crashes into their world. It's like, ouch, that's adorable. They're talking about the best program that you should buy into in case you want to buy other stuff. Yeah. It's like, here's a thought, why not just not buy anything? Just get what you need when you need it.
Yeah, it's true. We take on that burden and that risk and give you the flexibility, which leads to this slide, right. One of my favorites, because it comes from the evaluator group and an independent study that they performed, showing that because of our model and the way we roll it out to customers and how we interact with them,
and the impact on organizations, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the headcount impact and things like that.
Yeah, this is a comprehensive view. You're exactly right. Not only does it include the upfront cost of storage, but the cost of maintaining storage and running that storage and managing it. We come out pretty strong here.
Yeah. Well, it's not only strong, but as with the cloud services line, they're just very, very predictable.
Yeah.
Right. Because in both cases, you're paying for what you use. I mean, there are reasons we think our model's better, and again, we're running into our time here.
Yeah.
So we won't go into all of those, but this is the impact. This is the way it nets out.
I thought the last thing I'll say on this slide is I did find that the result with the cloud providers was the most surprising, and in other words, the delta between ours and theirs. But then I took a closer look at the cloud prices, and I realized, okay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is something that happens to people who go to cloud services all the time. So they go, hey, this is great, and then they get their bills and they use them. They go, oh,
yeah,
it's a great model, but it isn't cheap.
Right, exactly. So be careful.
Yeah.
Be careful. Performance. Let's talk. I know we've touched on this topic in a number of ways, and again, they overlap, but there's some important things to mention here.
Right. Well, again, it comes down to your choices, and it comes down, and whether we're talking scalability or performance or affordability, because it's kind of like, especially those three are, that's the three-legged stool, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but it comes down to choices in what you want your price performance point to be, and knowing that you can get it through the same interface on the same kind of operating model. So that's really the core of the performance issue, and storage companies love to advertise, benchmarks and whatever records on really large scale tests, and that's fine if that fits your use case,
yeah.
Right? But that's a very small tip of the iceberg. So if you need maximum sustained performance, we can do that. And any storage company can essentially give you as many IOPS as you want. It's just, we're down to, well, how much space you want to take up and how much you want to pay. So the key thing is to focus on what is your fit for purpose. What do you need to do to make sure your business goals are met and that you don't get those calls and, say, what the hell's wrong with my application? You can't control the application side, but you can make sure that you're delivering the storage point. So storage medium choice, non-disruptive way to fix it, what I call kind of oops-free existence. So if you went with the wrong storage choice before, you can fix it,
yeah.
Right? And the monitoring to keep so that a performance issue doesn't sneak up on you unseen.
And I thought I would add this slide to visualize exactly what you're talking about, which is the notion of performance is really about getting your data where you need it, when you need it, and when those requirements change, being able to change with them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And so we have here in between the data sources, which of course at the bottom you can see are characterized by the different types of users that you might encounter if you're managing storage, and all of their various needs. And then up at the top we have the various places where you might in fact have that storage located, whether it's on-prem, in a hyperscale cloud, or potentially in some kind of a service provider cloud.
Yeah, yeah, and one of the key takeaways, other than all the neat things that you can do with this and how this model works, is that when you look at the locations, from a model perspective, I mean, physics still applies, but from a business model perspective, it's all the same. It's the same pricing, it's the same business model.
Yeah.
Wherever you need your data, that's where we can put it.
Yeah, and this kind of control and this kind of flexibility in the middle here, with the tools that we provide both in our storage layer, and you can see that we have our virtual private storage arrays and our object store there, together with our integrated data services and apps. I mean, this is important, right? We live in an ecosystem.
Right.
And so we work with companies like McAfee, we work with companies like VM and others to make sure that we team up, we can deliver the kind of data services you need.
Right, and that's to get back up in lots of different ways. It's not just running an IOPS test. It's like, okay, let's talk about how the other leg of the stool, the availability. It's like, how long does it take you to back up? How quickly can you restore? Antivirus. I mean, how long does it take you to do your antivirus? What does antivirus impact on your running on your performance if you're doing on-demand scans? And how does it affect your organizational performance to have to manage antivirus servers and patch them and maintain the license, all that kind of thing? So we have tools in the backup, in antivirus, and in HA, in archive, to improve the overall performance of the storage operation.
Well said. Now, let's talk about compliance. I think this is one of those topics that people they know they need to deal with it. It's not necessarily their favorite. There's reasons for that. Everybody knows that there are rules we need to comply with, and government rules, of course, and rules promulgated by agencies. But there's other rules too. There's rules of just good data governance and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of people, I mean, a lot of organizations deal with both of those things. Mm-hmm. You can have a government agency typically focused on privacy aspect, right? Whereas what may be from your corporate governance may be about availability and ability to survive disasters. So much like the availability discussion, the compliance is more about having a complete suite of tools that can be applied to meet your governance, compliance, regulatory requirements. So at a base, and then we just list a couple of them here. I mean, you got to have encryption. You need it in flight and at rest. Otherwise, well, talk to your chief security officer about why you have to have both.
Yeah.
If it's not clear. Data retention options and automating data retention options. That can be governance and that can absolutely be regulatory. There are obviously industries that have really significant data retention requirements and
yes.
Right, and supporting discovery as another, in legal side. So there's a whole lot of things that go into that. We talked about DR and continuous monitoring, especially at the governance level. Organizations really like to know that their operation is monitored all the time.
Exactly, and conforming to the
and conforming and monitored for compliance.
Yes, exactly.
So the baseline,
mm-hmm.
Here's what we can, if you got to check some boxes.
Yeah.
We check the boxes.
Yeah, we've set up our system, I know, with an eye toward working with a number of customers in regulated industries, and ensuring that our systems are at the highest levels of data security and compliance.
Yeah, yeah. This is the baseline that you build off of.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not belittling checking off the boxes. Checking off the boxes is a go no go decision.
Right.
Right. So you got to have this. If you're in healthcare, you got to deal with HIPAA. As an example, GDPR obviously has been a big issue.
Yeah.
As it's relatively new and we're digesting it. So for somebody to go into a storage, the ability go into a storage system, to go into especially if you're taking a new approach that you're not yet familiar with, just the confidence of knowing that we have put in the effort and the commitment to establish this baseline.
Yeah,
is very helpful.
It's a baseline. You're exactly right. I imagine everybody on this webinar is very familiar with all of these requirements.
Yeah, or most of them anyway. I think some are regional, but yeah.
Exactly. So we are at 35 minutes in, Mark,
not bad.
And I think we've done well. We were basically on time. Thought we would take a moment to summarize what we've gone through. Obviously, with Zadara, we've taken a comprehensive view of what it means to operate in a cloud model. We believe we've addressed the fundamental issues. As you saw in today's webinar, there's a number of things to consider. They are in many ways interrelated, and we have built our system from the ground up, as you pointed out earlier, Mark. Built it from the ground up to operate in this model.
Right, and again, I want to just really emphasize the fact that while we see many, let's call them traditional vendors, making claims about coming into this market and what the wonderful things they're going to do, we architected from the beginning to do this. This is what we do. This is all we do. We live and die on this, and we've been doing it since 2011.
Yeah.
So we've been doing it since it was cool. Okay, since before it was cool.
Right.
And I will absolutely stand up and argue that experience shows. That's why you have a complete solution. That's why you have all those options. That's why we do what we do.
And don't take our word for it, right?
Well, actually, if you took my word for it, I'd really appreciate it. But you don't have to, because we have a set of customers who trust us to do this for them every day, and this is obviously just a sample, but these are companies you've heard of.
Yeah. There's some other logos that aren't on here.
Large, some we can't use.
Some we can't use. Large government agencies come to mind.
Yeah.
Agencies that launch rockets and things like that.
No, they don't.
They don't. Yeah. Okay. So we have a 30-day free trial, Mark. I thought I would put this in here.
Yeah. So let's talk about how you could start the process of getting confidence, of not taking our word for it.
Yep.
Right. No credit card required. Right?
None. Zero.
You sign up for the free trial, and you can do this. We didn't even talk about the AWS options, right? But there's a couple different ways you can do the free trial. It's really easy to do. You set it up. There's no credit card. There's no requirements, and just get up with a basic configuration that you can try out, and see if it does what we say it does.
And we'll be there with you every step of the way.
By the way, you'll be happy with it. And the other thing that's really different that I want to stress, and we talked about the managed services piece, but behind all of this, in that services piece, there are real human beings who support our customers. Again, they do it every day, and these are not just people on the phone. These are deep, experienced storage and DevOps and systems admins experts.
Yeah.
They're really good. And these people, even on the free trial, are the ones who are going to onboard you.
Yeah.
And bring you up to speed on how to use this. So this is a really good offer.
I'm so glad you said that about the people, because I know that we all encounter this. How many advertisements and solicitations do I get each day saying, come try this new service. It's powered by the latest AI.
Yeah. And
maybe it's true, maybe it isn't. The fact is that there are times, and this is one of them, where you just need a human.
Yeah, it's so in a separate life of mine, I am a certified machine learning engineer, or certifiable, depending on what you're doing there. And what I like about storage audiences is they're going to be skeptical anyway.
Right.
It's like, hold on to your skepticism, guys. Machine learning is very exciting. AI is very exciting. There's a lot of potential. It's way high on the hype curve right now.
Big time, right? Exactly. And so this is a service, and service means something to us. In fact, when you talk about storage as a service, last thing I'll mention here is that we believe the most important word in that phrase is, in fact, the word service.
Service, absolutely.
Well, listen, Mark, this has been terrific to go through this with you. I appreciate your time, and I hope that everybody that's listening today has had a chance to learn something. It's 10:40. We have a few minutes left. I thought we might take some questions.
Yeah, let's open it up, see if anybody has something we can help them address.
Excellent. I noticed that in all the excitement, I forgot to throw a few polls out there that
I noticed that.
we prepared.
I thought I wouldn't say anything about it.
Well, I enjoy our conversations, Mark, and I like listening to you, and I didn't think to do it. But tell me if we can. Let's go through. The first question is an easy one. I'm going to take this one. Can I request a copy of today's webinar to share with my team?
Oh.
Thank you very much for asking. We're certainly pleased to hear that. The good news is we do post all of our webinars on our website, free for you to access, and we will have this one up in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, and you'll get a follow-up email also. They'll give you the link to it.
It's exactly true. So let's take another question. Do you offer HyperSwap? HyperSwap.
Yeah, you got me with a blank look here.
Yeah, I'm a little.
What is HyperSwap?
I apologize. I don't know. Maybe
it doesn't happen very often.
Should we try to guess?
No.
No, I don't think that's a good idea.
I don't want to guess. I'll tell you what we can do is if we probably have the email the attendees. So
yes, we do.
So I'll take that as an action item and get back to them on.
What a great idea. Yeah. Thank you very much. So good news. We will get back to you on that. And by the way, these answers, to the extent that we see that these answers are valuable to everyone, we'll post them to the group. We'll in our follow-up. I know that there's another question that came in. I know this is a popular one as well, and it has to do with something you said earlier, Mark. So what's the difference between getting Zadara on premises versus getting it in the cloud? And you had said earlier, and I want to echo that. It's the same, but of course there are a few considerations.
Yeah, it's the same model. Okay, so the whole thing about all the flexibility that you get, the features that you get, all that is the pricing is the same. Physics applies. So if you, for instance, and this performance or whatever, whichever tool you want to work on, if you need the absolute best IOPS, or well, it really is the IOPS discussion, then an on-premises solution would be the right answer.
Yeah.
Because the path is shorter and the speed of light is what or speed of propagation through copper and fiber is what it is. So that's your shortest path. And that's the difference. I mean, the other difference is when you're on-prem, well, of course, we take up some rack space and we install it. And
it takes a couple days to ship it to you, a few days to build it.
Right. And now what we do, just for background, is we also overstock those installations so that you have flexibility to go ahead and consume more. You won't pay for it until you consume it, but it's there to give you the rapid response. If we do have to send additional capacity because you need to have a large change in that, then there's again a couple of days to get it in place. So that's one of the differences. Whereas in the cloud, it's pretty much instantaneous.
You brought up something really important here, and that I think clears up a mystery maybe for some people, which is the over provisioning problem doesn't go away. We're simply taking the risk. We're the ones.
That's right. That's right. Well, I mean, and that's important because again, for experienced storage professionals, I mean, one of the most painful things you can do is pre-buy storage.
Yeah.
Because the price is always going down, but if you're going to get stuck between CapEx cycles, you have to. And what this model does is it frees you from getting stuck there.
Yeah. It's that flexibility again. I have a question coming in about support, and I want to start the answer, and I know there's a lot to it, and we should talk about it because we don't distinguish between support and service. This is a 24/7 operation where we have the sun never sets on our service. We have 4 continents, and it's a proactive and not a responsive style of support. So when you think about Zadara and the service that we provide, it's less about support in a reactive way and more about we are monitoring and paying attention to your systems in a way that augments what you're doing.
Right. And the important point, and that's all important to understand the scope of it. But also, I mean, I think maybe where this question is coming from is that most storage companies have different levels of support.
Oh, they do. You're right.
Right, and you got your gold, your platinum, your gold, your silver, your tin,
Right.
Whatever you got. It's like there is only one level of support.
Yeah.
It's included with the service. There's no additional charge, and it's platinum by anybody's standard.
Yeah, well said. Okay, cool. That's a good point. Good distinction. So that's the world we live in. Now, in terms of additional questions, I know we're running a little bit low on time. We want to make sure that we respect everybody's time. We have a 45-minute webinar, and we're at 45 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the audiences, the participation has been great. The questions are great. We probably can't get to all of them. We really appreciate everybody's time. Can't overstate this, that if your company, if you're looking at this option, you're looking at the flexible consumption OpEx model, you're not sure. One is to contact us, because we have people, we have, as the website says, storage experts standing by.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And behind the guys on the phone, we also have solutions architects who can help you understand solutions for you, and set you up with this free trial if you wanted a little more concierge oriented.
Yeah.
Towards a particular set of use cases that you're concerned with. But if you just want to go and give it a go, give it a go.
At the very least, coming and talking to a company like Zadara, we're going to give you the whole story. I mean, it's hard to find out.
Right, because we were the first ones to do this. I mean, there are some people out there making some pretty silly claims about being first in this space, but we've got them by probably half a decade.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, I want to thank everybody again, and I especially want to thank Mark Levitt for being here with us today to walk through this topic. We hope it's been interesting. If you have any further questions, you can reach out to us through our website. We will have a copy of this webinar posted, and a follow-up email will come to you with links. And if you see a survey in there, by the way, please take a moment. We love to hear more about how we've done, so we can always get better in the future.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks again, everybody. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.